Hey guys, welcome back to my review of calaMity, the 14th episode of the second season of The Gifted. So it's another week, another solid episode of The Gifted, and too bad the ratings of this season are not really high enough to warrant a renewal for season 3. Now even though at this point in time the series has got a chance at renewal, it's still pretty minimal, so the chances are it's gonna get cancelled. Matt Nix, though, the producer of the series, did state in a very recent interview, one that I'm going to try to discuss on my trailer breakdown that I'm going to be posting tomorrow, that he does not really expect the series to be renewed on Fox, but if it does happen and the series gets a third season, it's probably going to happen on a streaming service, kind of like what happened with Lucifer last year. Now whether or not his words over here are based on actual facts, something that's actually in the works, we do not know yet. But at the very least, that kind of puts in some hope into the issue of The Gifted being renewed for a third season. But now that we're done talking prospects of renewal for a third season, and in the spirit of not wasting any more time, and without further ado, let's get started in number 1. So the episode opens with Benedict Ryan, once a mutant hater, always a mutant hater, but there's definitely a lot more to this one Purifier. He is a conman of sorts, as his first meet with REEVA indicates. He sold businesses to investors and then ran them into the ground. And he might not be that now, but he used to be a politically ambitious failure, given his run for Congress that REEVA mentions at the very beginning of the episode. Now the bit about him selling businesses kind of alludes to his character in the comics being a businessman besides the TV news anchor job. Only we've always known him as a millionaire instead of this shabby person that we do see at the beginning of the episode. So in the comics he's basically always more like the present day Benedict Ryan that we do see on the series. But moving on to number 2, WRQG is the name of the radio station that Benedict Ryan used to work for during that flashback that we see at the very beginning of the episode. Now I believe it's a reference to the WRFG radio station that broadcasts from Atlanta, Georgia. Makes a lot of sense as well to go for a play on the letters of the station, considering that 1. Atlanta, Georgia is the main filming location for The Gifted, and 2. The Atlanta incident and Atlanta itself are front and center on the show. Number 3. It's kinda obvious that REEVA is the one who made the offer to start with. So as the top prediction here goes, and I think we all thought that, more or less, it is really about a mutually beneficial transaction, and not to the population at large as well, but rather to these two, and these two alone, them being REEVA and Ryan. But number 4 though, obviously REEVA's decision to work with Ryan is all about elevating the level of hatred towards mutants from the side of humans, and hatred begets hatred, and that's really the objective. It is quite out of the Evil Dictator's handbook, inside hatred amongst two groups of people, if you do want to easily get into the leadership of one of those two groups. Obviously as well, she's the one who's always been deciding on what the Purifier targets would be, including the Morlocks on this episode. REEVA over the years has created a hate group, empowering her present-day rule over the inner circle, and allowing her to get rid of any and all mutant opposition, while still furthering her cause. But number 5, the day has come when I could state that Caitlin has been one of the MVPs of an episode. So Caitlin for once was the less reckless party. The Struckers have on their hands barely enough of the serum for 1, using it on 2 just expedites a situation where 2 of them are in trouble instead of just the 1. But in the end, and once she's gotten wind of all there was to this situation, Lauren's dreams, the letter from Andrea von Strucker, the music box, and of course Lauren's running away with the objective of joining in with the inner circle, joining in with Andy. All of that put together kinda has Caitlin agreeing it is the better choice. However though, and as we draw closer to the end of the episode, both Reed and Lauren decide they are both not gonna use this serum anymore. That does open room for the theory out there that maybe, just maybe, the powers of Reed and Lauren combined together are kind of resemblant of the combined power of the Fenris twins, just like the case is with the combined power of Lauren and Andy. But number 6, at the 7-minute mark of the episode, we see the number 223. The number could possibly be a reference to Uncanny X-Men Volume 1, number 223, to which there seems to be quite a few parallels over here, like it has really been quite the inspiration for this episode. So number 7, the idea of a medicine or serum being administered to Lauren, does parallel what we've got going on this issue, with NAZE and his poisoning, Storm being the one to administer the medicine in the comics, and the funny part is Storm as well needed that medicine because there was the possibility that she was poisoned as well, just like the cases with Reed over here needing the serum in order to inhibit his powers. Number 8 being on the alert, intrusion, the Purifiers in the Morlock base. That is sort of like the intrusion by Super Saber on the same issue, trying to find his friends Crimson Commander and Stonewall. But number 9, the African-American Purifier in the Purifiers meeting, getting on his feet to state he would support the attack on the Morlocks for the sake of the species. Now on the same issue, there is this one man talking to the reporter, Mr. B, about how he's no racist because he's got African-American friends. Yet that man in the comics does believe that mutants are evil because they don't look human, and because some of their powers can put people out of work. Notice the human part here, it kinda sounds like the species bit. But number 10, on this issue, NAZE being a fake and rather a dire wraith under the control of the adversary, and assuming his identity, could be some kind of foreshadowing to what Lauren's fate would be once the serum wears off and an evil version of herself, one that runs in the circle of the inner circle, does come to life. In all cases though, that's basically the fear of her parents, that she might turn into something that they don't want her to turn into in case they don't administer the serum to her. Number 11, Storm being convinced by fake NAZE that Forge has fallen to the adversary, sort of vowing to destroy him regardless of her love for him. That is possibly paralleled by a couple of things on this episode, but the one that stands out the most over here is that REEVA is convinced that Sage is the spy within the inner circle, even though that is not really the case over here. Number 12. John is marching on a road to a full breakdown, comparing notes with Marcos early on in the events of the episode when it comes to Clarice and Lorna leaving, each to different parties, but both to the effect of abandoning the underground. Now that, along with the events at the very end of the episode, all of it is going to play a role in next week's episode when it comes to John over here. But that's a topic for another video, gonna be discussing more on that in more detail on tomorrow's trailer and synopsis breakdown for next week's episode. Number 13. Clarice is fighting and arguing with Urg for the unity of the muted communities in the facing of the Purifiers in the inner circle. Obviously between the 12th episode when she joined in with the Morlocks, the 13th episode with the entire situation with Glow, Marcos and Caitlin coming in to help. Something in Clarice's mind, something in her core thought process about this situation kind of totally changed. I mean, otherwise, she would just be whiny. She did sign up with the Morlocks after all, knowing what they were and how they operated, and from the get-go. But anyway, Urg as well seems to be coming around on this episode, willing to do the right thing here. I think it's all because of the build-up from episode 13 with Caitlin saving Glow's life and embranding her a Morlock. It did kind of change his views on things, by quite a bit. But moving on to number 14, when it comes to the methodologies and motivations of the Purifiers, Jace Turner does seem to have a little bit of doubt on this episode. Now the thing about Jace is, his character, the way it has been since the beginning of this season, it's been the biggest misdirect. Some of us keep going back to thinking that his moral code is still intact, then he goes and does one thing or the other that gets us to conclude that there is no hope for Turner. But then and every time he does go back to having doubts once again. The fading away though of this week's doubt was brought to you by the shiny temptation that BENEDICT Ryan threw at his feet, changing things, the beauty and the power inherent in leading, achieving what he wanted to achieve with his work with Sentinel Services back on Season 1. So as of this moment it does seem that Turner is a goner, but actually not yet. More of that in tomorrow's video though. Moving on though to number 15, as expected it was never Lorna that was to take the blame for Max's death. She was not really the spy that they discovered. As expected as well, the scenes from the trailer of this episode weren't really in sync with the dialogue. So it was really Sage that they suspected over here, leading up to their attempt to penetrate her brain, followed by REEVA, finishing her off. Interestingly enough, this seems to be quite the parallel to her comic book counterpart. In the comics, Sage gets to understand her abilities for the very first time through a brief encounter with Professor X, but then years later, when they meet again, he recruits her to be his spy within the Hellfire Club. Now the murder of Sage at the hands of REEVA kind of resembles the comic book abduction of Sage by Bogan, the fact that Shinobi Shaw let her burn and didn't care to get her back at that point. There is also the fact that he kind of cut her out of all Hellfire Club operations once he was done using her assistance to gain a grip on everything Hellfire, gain full control of the Hellfire Club. But number 16, the Strucker women surrounded Lauren unable to get her powers up and running, suggesting negotiations, Caitlin knowing for a fact these cops have no plans to negotiate, pulling quite the stunt, shooting at the cops, and breaking through with John's car. Now I know I do sound biased because I love Amy Aker's performance since person of interest, but biased or not, she was just rocking it on this episode. Number 17. Clarice shot multiple times. Is she dead? Is she not? We've got no clue, by the way. Some have already decided these shots were enough to have killed her, and considering the shots in the fall, there's a good reason to believe that there's a good chance she's dead. But there's also the chance she isn't. After all, we're watching a comic book-based TV series, so a few bullets really could be everything, could be nothing. Now, regardless of the fact that some wiki out there has decided that she's already deceased, Matt Nix, in a panel with a special screening of the episode last Friday, stated, "It remains to be seen exactly what happens with her. You see, she disappears into the sort of vortex of the portals at the end, so there's more to learn about that. But yeah, that was definitely a bad day for Blink." But finally though, number 18. Jace Turner finding that teddy bear belonging to one of the Morlock children. I think that's his first step on the road towards the realization that he's on the wrong side, that he's avenging his daughter, from his perspective of course, by hurting and harming kids in the process who are possibly and probably her age when she died. I know, a lot of you are like, there's no way Jace is ever gonna find his way back to the good side. His principles were all just part of this mask that he puts on. But all the guy needs is a wake-up call in my opinion, and I think he just got his. But that being said though, I am gonna be bringing you my trailer and synopsis breakdown for episode 15 sometime tomorrow, but until then my work here is done. So let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode, what your predictions are for the finale of the season, and if you're just like me, hoping for a renewal for season 3. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing, and enabling notifications for my future videos, community posts, and live streams. Until the next time though that you tune in for another one of my videos, gifted or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning into this review, and have a great day.